Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. I'd like to be joined by my good friend and top trainer, Mark Tibbs. Mark, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, lovely, Danny. Yourself? Are you well?
I'm very good, thank you. How's the family? How's your son?
Yeah, Mrs. is doing a great job. Fantastic job. She'll click me round the ear hole talking to her like that. She's patronising. But my son is coming along really, really nice. It ain't easy, but you just got to keep on chipping away.
Let me ask you, because obviously your son's about the same age as mine, so it's been quite a while now. But did you find it much of a change balancing everything at work once your son came along compared to before?
Yeah, it was. Listen, like anything, Dan, it was taxing, but you got to do what you got to do, and you got to try and balance it all out, and you got to try and keep a good balance. And it's not easy. It's not easy at all. But my parents are a little bit old to lean on with my own kid at this age, and my wife's parents are a bit older than my parents. So obviously we ain't got a lot of help, but my missus done a great job in socialising my son and things like that. And we couldn't, I wouldn't change anything. I love my life.
I'm glad to hear it. Is he into boxing at all yet? Does he understand what you do and who you work with and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's really funny, Dan, because he hears me talking. He's quite shy, my son. Until he gets to know his circle, he's very, very shy. But a bit like myself when I was his age too. So he reminds me of myself. But he understands and knows all my. You still there, Dan?
Yeah, still there.
Yeah, he understands and knows all my fighters I train, because I talk about them a lot or watch them a lot, and he's got a punch bag in our garden which is there for him to use, but I don't force him. He loves football. He does a bit of rugby. He likes tennis, but he shapes up quite a lot with me. He shapes up in a southpaw stance. And he's got fast hands, and I always teach him accuracy, but I don't force it upon him. But no, I hope he don't box.
Well, if he's shaping up well already, it's going to be hard to avoid it given who his father and his grandfather are. But let's wait and see. Talks about the fighters you train there. Obviously, big night coming up for two of them, if not more, on the 6th of July. Johnny Fisher headlining at the Copper Box, which is a big step for any prospect. I guess there must have been a temptation, not with you, but with the managers and the promoters, to put him in that sort of position earlier, given how many tickets he sells. Do you think it's come just at the right time?
I believe so, Dan. I think it's a great fight for Johnny. It's not going to be a walkover, that's for sure. Babic comes to bring it. He has a good profile, and for how long he's been in our country fighting, has a good profile. Was a great character. Got a very appealing on the eye style, fighting wise, and I think the public are going to like it. And I think it's a good move for Johnny Fisher, because I'm around him and know the psychology of him. I feel that. I feel he'll want to take on the world once he does a job on Alen Babic. And as I say, we're chipping away. It's not a foregone conclusion. And listen, but our job is to get him get him to do a polished performance, get the win in an emphatic style, and that's what we intend to do.
And as you said there, Babic has got a crowd pleasing style, but it's also quite a unique style for a heavyweight, the amount of punches he throws and the amount of pressure that he puts on. Probably why they looked at taking him down to bridgerweight and cruiserweight, because he does throw a lot of shots. He's not the biggest heavyweight either. How challenging or not has it been to find sparring to kind of emulate what Babic brings?
Well, it's always challenging to find an actual sparring partner partner that can mimic the certain guy we're fighting. But we do the best we can, and yeah, we do the best we can. And sometimes we got to use our imagination. But so far, so good. I'm happy with our choice of sparring partners for Alen Babic.
And do you think Babic is as good as he was, say, 2 or 3 years ago when he was getting that recognition, mostly on Sky Sports, of course? You know, last couple of fights, we know what happened when he went up to the Bridgerweight World title, didn't go his way, bit of a shootout. And then since then, we've seen him against Steve Robinson. A bit laboured maybe compared to before, but is that just inactivity or is he still the same fighter? What's your view?
Well, I don't want to reveal too much, to tell the truth, Danny, but all I can say is Alen Babic is a dangerous guy because of his fighting heart and his mentality. So he'll always be dangerous. And I feel that we've got a tactic that can put a stop to anything that Alen Babic wants to get off, if that makes sense. So that's what we're doing in the camp of Johnny Fisher. Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier that Johnny will feel ready to take on the world once Babic is in the rearview mirror. You've obviously got to take a different view as the trainer and try and, you know, go for the right fights at the right times. What is your kind of long-term plan for him?
Well, when I say it, you know, we get my dream and my vision and what I see once he's dealt with Alen Babic. You know, but as I say, we're not underestimating him at all because, you know, heavyweight boxing is heavyweight boxing, as they say. It only takes one click of the whiskers to change the route. But you know, I just know Johnny. Once we overcome Alen Babic, I just know where his brain's going to be, and all them in the domestic scene just above him. He'll be ready for him. He'll be more than ready for him. And but listen, one step at a time, Danny. One step at a time.
And by the domestic scene, I assume you mean the guys like Fabio Wardley, Frazer Clarke, Sol Dakers, if he gets past David Adelaide in his next fight. Is that the sort of level we're talking about?
All them names, Dan. All them names, yeah. So listen, like Johnny's 24, all them guys you're talking about are their 28s, they're just near the 30 mark. So listen, we've got time. We have time. But and there'll be a time when we'll be holding Johnny back. Come back. That sort of thing. So listen, yeah, listen, we've got to take one fight at a time, and that Babic on the 6th of July at the Copper Bosch, Stratford, East London.
I hope they haven't paid you to say that.
I'm hearing them say it.
So, I can imagine, yeah. So
rub it off.
Just before we move on from Johnny, just a couple of fighters I mentioned there, just to get a couple of kind of predictions from you, if you don't mind. We're expecting a rematch to take place between Fabio Wardley and Frazer Clarke for that British title sometime soon. Incredible first fight, you know, really enjoyable to watch. Who do you fancy coming out on top? Who do you think's, I guess, got more improvement in them ahead of the rematch?
It's a difficult question to ask, Danny. But it probably could be like a copy and paste of the first fight. You know, I just feel Frazer is a little bit more polished and he's got that pedigree to get the win, to be honest. And but you know, Fabio's a clever man. He's come out the white collar boxing and proved us all wrong. Not me, but I've seen Fabio since the start. But like, I didn't doubt what Fabio can do. He's a nice guy, and it's anyone can win that rematch. I really believe that.
And then you've got the fight I mentioned between Sol Dakers and David Adelaide on Frank Warren's Magnificent Seven show coming up. Adelaide, not his best performance against Fabio Wardley. I think maybe he'd like to have that one back if he had the chance. Probably didn't give all he could in that one. Soldaker's done everything asked of him so far, but this is his first major test. How do you weigh that one up?
I fancy both nice guys. I fancy Sol, to tell the truth, because of the height and the range and his pedigree. I feel that Sol could, box him up and get the win for sure.
Now, another fight I did want to ask you about, it's taking place this weekend at Selhurst Park at the football stadium. A guy that you used to work with in Richard Riakporhe, still unbeaten, gets his first world title shot. It's coming against someone he's beaten already, Chris Billam-Smith. But a lot's changed since then, of course. Were you working with Richard for the CBS fight the first time?
Yes, I was. I was his trainer for that fight. That's a great fight. I'm glad they've got the rematch. It was a tight fight when I was looking after him, but Richard won. And, I know Richard and I know Chris. And it's a difficult... Listen, see, Richard Riakporhe is a very, very calculated, tough son of a gun, man. He's a tough son of a gun, and there's something about Richard which, apart from being a big puncher, he's got a vicious streak in him that's very underlying, if you know what I mean. But and that's what I like about Richard. He can pull it up when everything's against him. And listen, through with experience and since I've left him, everyone grows with experience if they work at their craft. Chris Billam-Smith included, and Richard Riakporhe. So it's going to be a good fight. And I feel that Richard could do this, because a little fresher for me. But Chris Billam-Smith, absolutely one strong, good fighter, boxer, good strong man. Two of them, good strong men. And I'm looking forward to that Saturday.
Now, I have to ask, because you were in the corner and helped guide Richard to victory the first time around, if you were in the corner again you're not going to be, but if you're in the corner again on Saturday night, what would you be saying to him? What are the kind of ideal tactics for that?
Well, you know what? It's very... I'd be making that up, Danny, if I was to give an explanation to that, because it's been a long time since I've been away from Richard, and I've been around a lot of different styles and fighters myself. And I bumped into Richard once, not too long ago, when I took Johnny Fisher to spar some rounds with Frazer Clarke. So I bumped into Richard. It was a lovely surprise to see Richard looking healthy as usual. And but it's difficult for me to analyse and put stylistically tell what what I should expect from Richard. But it would be fair, Danny. But what I do like about Richard is when I had him, he was very, very raw. He was very, very raw, but he had it in him to pull it out the bag at any given moment. I expect him to have updated his boxing skills a little bit. He must have done. But I do hope he hasn't confused his fighting ability so much. Got too fancy. Got too fancy and too technical. Because, that could be his downfall too. So, I said I weren't going to answer, and I just did.
Appreciate it. What was it like for you going up there to Loughborough, taking Johnny up there to spar? Because you used to be based there, of course, with Dillian. Was that your first time back in a while?
That was actually my first time back to the university where I used to train Dillian White. It was the current gym's in a different area to where I was with Dillian, but I know that place very, very well. It's a great facility up there, and I had the opportunity to base myself up there, but my life was in East London, where I belong, and where my family is.
Glad to hear it. East London, I'm not sure it's where I belong. It's certainly where I grew up, but that's a story for another day. Want to ask you as well, it's looking very likely at the moment that Anthony Joshua's next fight will be against Daniel Dubois. They're talking Wembley in September. Now, you didn't work directly with Dubois, very nearly did, but you were away in Spain, I believe, with Billy Joe, and your dad was mainly working with Dubois. When you were out there and you were getting calls from your dad on a regular basis, as he does when he's kind of looking after your fighters, what was he telling you about Daniel? What were you hearing?
Well, let me just remind you, Danny. I was around Daniel Dubois when I was in the Peacock Gym, as Martin Bowers was his current trainer then. Sure. And so I was in and around him, and obviously I had Dillian White as well, and I never really used to pry on Daniel, because obviously they could have met at some point. I don't think they was ever going to meet, but I feel that at the time they felt they could have met Dillian at the time. But to answer your question, from my memory, which I did train him when I come back from Spain, yeah, only briefly, and had a bit of time with him. But he's, from my memory, from my dad's, relaying messages to me, it was a little bit yo-yo-y. His performance was yo-yo-y in the gym and up and down the country sparring. But his technical armory was all there, and it's difficult if you can't be around your subject or your fighter all the time, because you won't get that. You shouldn't have that yo-yo effect in a training camp. You know what I mean? It should be steady and constant, and climbing, getting better and better. But it was a little bit yo-yo-y, which a little bit of telltale signs he's doing different things, he's mixing things up. I mean, I wasn't with him, I don't know. So, but yo-yo performances, not a good sign. But I've got to say, what a wonderful performance his last performance was. And I think it's his best to date. Great performance. And that fight with AJ, I hope that comes off, because, he's a young man as well, still young, and AJ's, probably his pinnacle. I think he's got a great chance, Daniel Dubois, for sure. Fantastic chance.
And if we include you on the list, Dubois had 4 head trainers already as a pro, and he's still only, 26 years old, I think. Is that a concern when a fighter moves around that much, or is it a good sign that he's looking for the right fit and to learn new things?
It's a hard one to say, but listen, after his last performance, whatever he's been doing, he's got to stick at it. Whatever he's been doing, he's got to stick at it. I don't believe it was anything physical with Daniel. A little bit psychological aspect, but so it's difficult for me to say, Dan, because I never had that much of time one-to-one with him. You have to be with your fighter, you know what I mean, to get an understanding. When you have too much away from your fighter, you can lose a bit of them, and and then you can't get what you can get out of them. You know what I mean? Does that make sense, Danny?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you said about the psychological question marks, if you like, and that came mainly from the Joe Joyce fight, a little bit from the Usyk fight as well. Has he done enough in his last couple of performances to silence those doubts, do you think, or are there still question marks?
Still got to do it again. If he does it again, if he does that again, what he did out there in Saudi Arabia, then the public and everyone will get a lot more belief in him, if that makes sense, Danny. But yeah, he's a weapon, man. He's a weapon. He's a big puncher. And my guy Johnny Fisher sparred with him many times, and I took him over to spar at Shane's once, and I wanted to take Johnny over there, and there was something I needed to get from Johnny. And I went to him, John, we've only got 4 rounds with Daniel. This is what I want you to do. Because when my dad looked after Johnny and Daniel when I was in Spain with Billy Joe, You know, he probably wasn't ready to spar with Daniel back then, and I'm glad he didn't, because I have to be with him, because I know them. I know my fighters. You get me? I know where they are. Anyway, and I took Johnny over to spar with Daniel Dubois over in Shane's gym. And I said, look, we've only got 4 rounds. This is what I want you to do. I can't tell you. I can't tell you what.
I knew you
I can't tell you. But anyway, so this is what I want you to do. And we had 4 rounds with Daniel, and Johnny was offensive but defensive. I can't go into detail. But we frustrated Daniel and Shane, bam, 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 bang the canvas. And that's all I wanted to get, to bring Johnny's confidence up, you know, and you know, and that's what we did. And we went back to Don Charles's gym and done a few rounds. And since he's changed trainers with Don Charles, and yeah, so like, you know, you got to prep and build fighters the right way, otherwise you won't get them. We won't get them to the end products. Yeah, it's the right way of building and preparing fighters. And getting back to Daniel Dubois, I think after that last performance he done over there in Saudi Arabia, I think he does that again. We're all going to have big confidence in him. And if he can do it to AJ, wow, blimey. And he can.
How, in your view, has he changed? I know it's only a few rounds with Johnny, with Don and with Shane, but how has he changed, if at all, style-wise, since the move to Don's gym?
Well, from my experience, the times I went over there, and to looking at him on his last performance, it can only be the psychological aspect, because, you know, Daniel, I believe, is what he is. He's like a little bit Frank Bruno E5, if you get me. You know what I'm saying? A little bit Frank Bruno E5, but Frank, in my opinion, was there mentally a little bit, you know, consistently and you know, consistently right the way through. But Daniel, I feel, is probably a bit more elusive, a little bit more natural than Frank stylistically. But both, man, Daniel can punch. Daniel's got a big punch on him. Johnny Fisher's felt it as well, and I feel that you know, he's got heart too. He's got a heart, man. He's got a heart. So, but he done brilliant in his last time out. Yeah.
What have you made of Joshua in his last couple of fights? Now he's with Ben Davison and that team in Harlow, not too far from you, obviously. What have you made of him compared to the Joshua of old?
Yeah, well, you can definitely see that he is where he was when Robert McCracken had him, you know, psychologically, and it's difficult to gauge against the UFC guy. Remind me of his name, please.
Francis Ngannou.
Francis Ngannou, because Francis is always there. Francis is always there to be hit. You get me? But you have to hit hard enough to switch lights off. And Anthony Joshua can switch lights off. And it was a very simple combination how he switched them lights off of the UFC guy. Yeah.
So Anthony Joshua against Dubois, if it happens in September, so next time out, who would you fancy if it was like your last pound?
Well, I feel, I've said it before, and you probably get bored of me saying this, but whoever connects first, fast and hard, wins.
Who would you back that to be?
Well, Anthony Joshua is so vastly more experienced than Daniel Dubois, and how he switched off Francis Ngannou off. Yeah, if he can get out, get his measure, wallop, do that, I think Anthony Joshua is probably favourite in my opinion, because I've only seen a good psychological performance from Daniel Dubois in his last fight. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And listen, remember, I've got to see these guys around the circuit.
That's why I try and get you to do as many predictions as possible, because I know you won't sit on the fence for all of them.
But is that a bit is that too complicated, or do you get that?
No, I think that's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's who you would back if you had to, isn't it? You know, no one knows for sure, but no, I think that's good. And just finally, looking at something like that in the works, Wembley Stadium, capacity crowd, you would hope. How much excitement does that give you for Johnny Fisher's future? Because that's where he's aiming to be.
Johnny Fisher, listen to me. That man, he knows it as well. Has the world at his feet. Yeah. He just a little raw, as in the boxing life. The boxing life, that he's trusting it. He's trusting bits and pieces. He doesn't have to force anything. He's in great hands with his management, his promoter, and I like to think ourselves at Tibbs Boxing here at the Origin Gym in Raynham. Plug. So yeah. Johnny Fisher, one step at a time, but he has the world at his feet.
Good stuff, Mark. Really appreciate it, mate. Enjoy the rest of your week and leading up to the Copper Box show. And yeah, hopefully your son, as you said, sticks to the football, tennis, and rugby, and maybe avoids the boxing.
Please. He's good at maths and all.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. I mean, there are non-sporting options. Yeah, I should mention.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
But listen, love and respect to you, Danny, and your family too.
Cheers, mate.
God bless you.
Appreciate it.
Take care, Dan.
Take care, mate.
All the best.
See you later.
Thanks, mate.